Hello everybody, I hope that you're well. My name is Christianne and welcome to my channel Backpacking Bananas, where today we are going to be continuing this mini series on catching flights for beginners. What to expect, because I believe that catching flights should be fun and exciting as opposed to scary and overwhelming. So I hope I can help you with that in these videos. This particular video we are going to talk about what to expect actually on the plane. How does the experience go? Are there any unspoken rules of etiquette? But before we get into that, I'd like to introduce to you the sponsors of today's video, Surfshark. Surfshark VPN, which stands for Virtual Private Network, which is something that we should all be having on our devices, especially when we are at the airport. Because did you know that when you connect your device to a public Wi-Fi network, like in an airport or a cafe, for example, your device is at risk of being hacked through that connection? Shocking, I know. But luckily we have a very easy way of protecting our device and all of the data on it by switching our Surfshark on with a click of a button. It acts like a virtual shield on your device so that none of those evil hackers can get in. What you can also do with Surfshark switched on is change the virtual location of your device to pretty much anywhere in the world. So if you want to access Netflix from another country, if you want to access media that may be blocked in your country but available in others, you can even play around with finding cheaper flights to switching the country where they are selling the same tickets for just cheaper. And Surfshark are one of the only VPNs that gives you access on an unlimited number of your devices with just the one account. And you can get an entire whole 3 months for free when you use my code backpacking, or you can click the link in the description. So let's pick this up from having gone through your gate at the airport and you are now walking onto the plane, either walking upstairs directly onto the aircraft, or maybe you have the luxury of direct access on an indoor tunnel. Have your boarding card out to show the flight attendant when boarding. They often like to look at it and point to where your seat is, even though most of the time everyone's seat is in the same direction. Just let them have their moment. When finding your seat, the seat numbers will be above the seats underneath the overhead lockers, and it will also indicate which letter is aisle seat and which is window as well. If you remember, you can have a little look at seatguru.com when you're in the departure lounge, plug in your flight and seat number, and you can familiarise yourself with exactly where you'll be seated on the plane and what amenities you can expect to have. When you found your seat, if you have a bag to put in the overhead bin, try to get your bag in the overhead locker directly above your row or closer to the exit, but try not to have it further away from the exit or it will be really hard to retrieve at the end of the flight. And then when you've found your seat, you can lift up those armrests in the middle if you want, because that will just make getting to your seat a little bit easier, especially if you're on the window. Once you're in your seat, you can get comfy. Slot your bag in a nice spot under the seat in front of you. Maybe you want to get your pillow out, put your phone in the seat pocket in front of you, or other things you want accessible. Make sure you're not sitting on your seatbelt straps, and make sure you have got hold of your own straps and not the person next to you. And then try putting on your seatbelt. And if you don't fit the seatbelt because the seatbelt is too small, you can actually ask for a seatbelt extender from one of the cabin crew. And I learned this trick from Kirsty Leanne, who makes all kinds of social media content about travel tips as a plus size person. So I really recommend giving her a follow. I'll leave her links in the description below. If you are sitting in an emergency exit row, they will ask you a few questions such as, are you fit enough to do this job, etc. Don't be afraid about this. If you are a mostly able-bodied person and can open doors, you are fit for this job. So listen to the attendant and enjoy your extra legroom. They will tell you that you need to put your bag, which you've put in the seat in front of you, in the overhead bins. The flight attendant will tell you all of this though, so don't worry about remembering. You should always sit in your allocated seat when getting on the plane initially. When boarding has finished and all passengers are seated and you have a spare seat next to you, hooray, claim it, I would. Or if you're in the middle seat, you have people either side of you and you see that everyone has boarded and you don't like your seat, you can stand up and have a quick look to see if there are any free rows at the back of the plane. If there are, you can ask a flight attendant if you can move there. Hopefully they will say yes, unless they have some good reason not to allow it. If you are in the middle, you should, in my opinion, have priority over both armrests, which means if you are in the window seat or the aisle seat, don't put your arm on the middle armrest unless the person in the middle is actively not using it. Even then, I personally wouldn't, because sitting in the middle kind of sucks. So one little privilege you can have is having the armrest. This is not a law, but this is something that I believe to be fair. If you have chosen a window seat or have the privilege of being allocated a window seat, try not to get up to go walking loads during the flight, because both the middle and the aisle people also have to get up to let you out. And if you're getting up and going back down loads, it's just a very quick way to be very disliked by everyone on your row. If this concerns you, you don't want to feel trapped, you want to be able to walk when you want, go to the toilet frequently, please just pick an aisle seat when booking the flight. Now, when the plane is ready to take off, the crew will make sure everyone has their seatbelt on. You gotta keep this on and remain seated until the light above you turns off. This will usually be around 10 to 15 minutes after takeoff when the plane is high up in the air. When the seatbelt line is turned off, you are welcome to stand up, walk about, go to the toilet. The only thing I will say to be aware of is the cabin crew trolley cart. It takes up the whole aisle. You cannot pass, and it's a big inconvenience to the cabin crew to have them move all the way down the aisle with their trolley for you, and often they just won't do it. So before you leave your seat totally, just stand up and do a little check to make sure that you have a clear path all the way to getting where you want to get to. Another unspoken etiquette with the toilet, but not for anyone else's benefit really, just your own: wear shoes to the toilet. I'm a big fan of socks and sandals as plain footwear because my feet tend to swell up on planes, so I like to wear sandals so I can easily slide the shoes on and off. But socks also keep my feet warm because the air conditioning can make your toes cold. But anyway, back to going to the loo, socks or not, just wear your shoes. Men don't have good aim at the best of times, let alone on a potentially turbulent plane in a confined space. And let's talk about reclining your seat. Quite a few budget airlines these days don't even allow you to recline your seat anymore, so this isn't an issue. But if you have a little sticky out button on one of your armrests, either the inside of your armrest or it might be at the edge as you wrap your hands around, if you press that button and simultaneously plant your feet into the ground and push down with your feet and push back with your shoulders, you should feel that you are able to recline your seat. The only official rule with this is that your seat needs to be upright for takeoff and landing and during meal times. However, I'd say there is an unspoken etiquette with this that not everyone might agree on. Some people think it's rude to recline at all. Some people might say that you should only recline when the person in front of you has reclined, leaving you with no other choice. Some people say it's okay to recline, but you should ask permission of the person behind you first. Some people will not think twice about reclining and aggressively do so as soon as they are permitted. None of these are correct or incorrect, and my personal opinion on the etiquette of reclining is, unless it's a night flight, I will refrain from reclining for as long as possible, especially if the person in front of me has not reclined. But when I decide, okay, it definitely would be more comfortable for me to be reclined right now, I just go ahead and do it, but make a conscious effort to do it as slowly and gently as possible so it's not a jump scare for the person behind me. I don't ask permission from them beforehand, and I'll tell you why. If the person in front of me asked me if it was okay that they reclined their seat, I'd obviously say yes because it's their right, but it would put me in a little bad mood because I'd be like, oh, I have to say yes, when in reality I'm thinking, I'd rather you didn't. Whereas if the person in front of me didn't ask for my permission, but just slowly started reclining, one, I might not even notice, I might be dozing. And two, if I did notice, I'd think, fair play, they want to recline. I'm grateful that they've done it gently. But like I said, there are no rules. This is just how I personally go about it. If it's not a budget airline, your meals and drinks are probably included, which is great. The crew will come around and usually give you two options. If you have dietary requirements, you should have specified this when booking your flight, and you will probably receive your meal before anyone else. The crew will know where you are sitting, so don't worry about that unless you have switched seats. If you have switched seats and you've ordered a special meal, you should definitely let the crew know where you're sitting now so that they can find you. The etiquette at meal times is to return your seat into the upright position. Crew will normally remind you of this, or hopefully remind the person directly in front of you. But if they don't, this is the etiquette, and I do think that it's acceptable to ask the person in front of you if they wouldn't mind returning their seat upright so that you can comfortably eat your meal without your tray table like basically touching your chest. If meals are not included on your flight, there should be a menu in the pocket on the back of the seat in front of you where you can order meals, snacks, drinks, should you want anything. These are usually quite overpriced though, so if you can pick up snacks in the airport, that may be a better shout. Do be aware though, you are not allowed to purchase alcohol in the airport that you then consume on the plane. There's not really any etiquette when it comes to sleeping on the plane. What I will say is that if you are not on a budget airline, play around with the headrest on your seat. The flaps should be able to fold forward and give you a nice little rest for the side of your head. Cabin crew like it if you have done your seat belt up on top of your blanket or on top of all your clothes before falling asleep, because if the seatbelt light comes on in the middle of the flight or for whatever reason, they don't want to have to wake you to make sure that you put it on. If you are a snorer, try not to. You are going to be keeping a lot of people awake if you are honking for hours on a flight. Turbulence is common in planes and it is completely normal, and the aircrafts are literally designed to travel through turbulence. I once heard a professional describe turbulence as the plane going through a big chunk of jelly. It's like a big wind tunnel and it literally feels like jelly. You are going up and down and wobbling around, but you cannot fall out of the sky. You are over 2,000 times less likely to die in a plane incident than you are in a car, which basically means if you feel safe in a car, you should feel 2,000 times more safe being in a plane based on these statistics. The cabin crew normally ask you to sit down and put your seatbelt on during turbulence. This is completely normal. And if in doubt about anything going on the plane, don't hesitate to ask a cabin crew member. They are always so friendly. They are literally there to help you. And like anything in life, the kinder you are to them, the kinder they are going to be back. So try not to be rude to staff. They are used to dealing with all kinds of passengers and situations. So if you're feeling nervous, nauseous, you've got the shits, or maybe you're scared about missing your connecting flight, I don't know, just tell a member of staff. I promise you that they will have heard it all before and are there to help you, and they want you to feel at ease. When the plane lands, please refrain from clapping. It's not necessary at all. You will probably only ever hear clapping if you are flying in or out of the United States, because it's a very American thing. You are only allowed to take your seatbelt off and stand up when the seatbelt sign turns off. And this is not going to be immediately after you've landed. It's probably not even going to be when the plane first stops. It's going to be when the plane comes to a final stop where you will actually be disembarking. Please be patient. This is probably the thing that passengers get wrong the most. They just stand up too soon before they're allowed. And although I've never been a cabin crew member, I can only imagine that this is one of their biggest frustrations with their passengers, because I've literally seen cabin crew members shout at passengers before who were just standing up too soon. And it's always a middle-aged man as well. So when the seatbelt light finally does turn off, you can stand up, collect your belongings. But the thing is, you're probably still not going to be moving for another 5 to 20 minutes. So honestly, staying seated I think is the best policy here. Just gather up your things from the floor and get ready to stand when it is your row's turn to leave. Here's another unspoken etiquette. So the plane will disembark row by row, starting from wherever the exit is, which is usually the front of the plane, but sometimes it's the back, or sometimes it might even be both. But the rows closest to the exits go first, and then you pile out from there. There are always some people who will literally do everything in their power to get ahead of rows before them. Like, they'll push themselves forwards, giving you no space to get out of your row and practically be smelling your armpits as you lift your arms up to get your bags out of the overhead lockers. These people are the worst people on the planet. The only time you should go ahead of people in rows before you is if they are genuinely just not ready to stand up yet. Perhaps they know that they are slow, want to give themselves time to leave, and so they like to wait until most of the plane has disembarked before they try. That's fine, and of course you can go ahead. But if you see the people in the rows before you are ready to leave their seat, but they're just waiting to grab their bags and get off the plane, do not try to push in front of them because they haven't grabbed their bag yet. As you can tell, this really riles me up, so please, for the love of God, don't be like this. When leaving my row, I personally like to lift up all of the armrests because I find it a lot easier, including the armrest that's actually on the aisle side. And there's actually a little trick to lifting this one up because the ones in the middle will just lift up by themselves. But with that one on the aisle side, you feel your finger into this little groove underneath in the corner. You should feel a little piece of metal, and if you press that little metal piece, you should be able to simultaneously lift up that armrest. And not everyone knows that trick. This will make getting out easier for you. I also often find it comfortable if I'm waiting to leave the plane and I can't move but don't want to sit anymore and there is no space in the aisle. I like to stand up and then just kneel on my seat. You feel like you're standing, but not at that kind of awkward angle in front of your seat. And then you can get off the plane. Sometimes they might have stairs which are leading you down onto the tarmac, which then might lead you into a bus. Sometimes you might have a tunnel which just takes you straight through into the airport, but just follow the crowd. Everyone's going to be going in the same direction. The only time you really need to look out at this point is if you are at your final destination, then you want to follow the signs which say baggage reclaim, time or arrivals. But if you are getting a connecting flight and this is just your layover stop, then you want to follow the signs which say transfers or connections or something along those lines. But that is it for this video. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it and maybe feel a bit more comfortable about catching your next flight. Or maybe you are a flight veteran, in which case I would love to know your thoughts. Do you agree with this unspoken plane etiquette? What do you think the middle seat person's entitlement should be to the armrest? What do you think is acceptable when it comes to reclining your chair? I'd love to know your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!